Hello everybody, I'm sporedtodeath and today I'd like to do a video about taking sharp, pointy objects and stabbing them into your eyes and injecting drugs directly into your brain. I'm of course talking about the video game Prey, hopefully. So I just finished the game a couple of days ago, and I wanted to do a video on Neuromod tips. Having just beaten the game and been very kind of completionist about it, I think I only missed Dr. Calvino's stash, though why you would want to shave the facial hair off of a dead guy, I have no idea. Um, I wanted to kind of give new players or players who are just thinking about picking up the game some tips on neuromods because neuromods are, well, there's a lot of them. Um, and you may look at this and you may have played games like Deus Ex where when they give you points, it's usually 1 point to unlock an upgrade, and that the upgrades are usually, they alter the game a lot, but you're not going to get a lot of upgrades. Prey is going to do the opposite. They're going to give you a ton of neuromods to upgrade yourself. Um, and this walkthrough may contain a couple of spoilers. I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum because I think there's a lot of joy in playing the game and discovering things yourself. But that being said, it can be a little intimidating to look at all of these different choices and go, what should I put my points into? So without giving too much away, I want to kind of give you guys a guide as to how to optimize your gameplay to get the most out of your experience without revealing too much of the story. All right. So as you can see, and you've probably already heard about this if you're looking at a video, our neuromods are going to be based on either human or Typhon. All right. So they make that distinction, but I'm actually going to divide them up in a different way. I'm going to divide them up into neuromods that give you access to areas and neuromods that keep you alive and help you survive. All right. The reason for this being is that when you're playing the game, you're going to run into things that you're not going to be able to reach, or there's going to be doors that you're not going to be able to open. And sometimes you can find codes or passwords or ventilation ducts to get around them, and sometimes you can't. And a lot of times, it's actually just easier to use a neuromod to get access to something because, you know, there's something cool behind that door or in that safe or on that computer that's going to lead you to better loot that will keep you alive. So that being said, we're going to go into the access neuromods first. All right. And of course, the first one you're going to see is hacking. Hacking comes in 4 different levels. And one of the things I want to stress is don't concentrate on ranking anything up too fast. The game is set up so that if you're in the first couple of areas, you're only going to run into doors that are level 1 or 2. It's going to progress as you go. You're going to be able to expand what you're going to be able to get access to as you play the game. That also being said, games like Deus Ex, it's a linear playthrough. When you leave an area, you can never come back to it, and you can never find out what was behind that door. Whereas this game, you can go to any area of the game until you decide to finish the game. So hacking, I'm going to say right early in the game, you may want to take hacking 1. Right? It's fairly cheap. I think it's 1 or 2 neuromods. After that, the next one I recommend is something you probably wouldn't think of, and I did do a brief video on it. It's mimic matter. You can, and I have a demonstration set up for this, use this to get access to a lot of areas that otherwise you would have to have a high-level hacking skill or a high-level leverage skill. And we'll take a look at leverage real quick. It's the ability to pick stuff up. And again, this is one of those things where level 1, maybe early in the game, is enough to get you pretty far. Toward the end of the game, you'll need level 3. All right? But think about this for a second. Level 1 leverage, it costs maybe 2 neuromods. The second one is going to cost 4. And the third one is going to cost either 6 or 8. I can't remember. So that's a total of 12 neuromods. Same thing with hacking, right? First one may cost you 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. All right? So that is 12, 20 neuromods to get Fall of Hacking. Whereas there are a lot of places you can get early access to for 2 neuromods. And a banana. Yes, the banana is essential. All right, so as you can see, we've got a security slot here, a security area, and there's stuff behind it. And I've already opened this up, and I've used this trick. And you can use many different objects, but I like the banana because, A, it's funnier, and B, the banana actually has a low profile. So it will actually fit where many other objects may not fit. So we want to drop our banana somewhere. And it's important that you're actually on the ledge and ducking down when you do this. And then highlighting the banana, hit the L2 button, and turn into a banana. And as you move, you can flop down, fall down into the security station, and turn back into a person. And then you can access all the stuff to open the door and get the stuff into the safe. Did I finish this safe? I don't even know if I got this safe. I can hack a safe right now. Hacking is also not that bad. I'll show you briefly. It's a quick mini game. I've got level 4 hacking, and level 4 is not too much more difficult than level 3. Level 1 and level 2 also pretty easy. They give you plenty of time. I think over the course of the game, I've only screwed up a couple of different hacks. I had 8.5 seconds left. That's great. So, again, I forgot this was even here. Came back later and was like, oh yeah, I should take that. Okay. And, of course, when you get done with this, you can also unlock the door and just walk your way out. Okay. Oh, it was over here. All right, so back to the neuromods, because you don't want to see me go back and pick up a banana. That'd be a little silly. All right, so between mimic, hacking, and leverage, that's going to give you most of what you're going to need to get through the game, to get to the different areas, to access to different stuff, to find the secrets. All right. There's one other neuromod that I would recommend, other than those, that will help you get around the game, but I don't recommend you take it until much later in the game. Right? And that is, it's probably under security, mobility. All right, so conditioning is going to give you extra stamina. So it's going to help you with sneaking. It's going to make you a little bit faster. You can swing the wrench a little bit more. When you get close to the end of the game, or maybe if you're playing on a hard mode, because I played on normal, and part of your strategy is to avoid enemies rather than fight them one-on-one, mobility will give you the ability to jump and sprint really fast. I picked it up, and I actually think, let's see, this is me sprinting to go back and get the banana, and this is me jumping, and you can use the pack to also kind of get yourself back up into the air and actually even get a bit more of a boost to help you with climbing a lot. So you can use the glue cannon to get to places, but you use a lot less glue, and it's a lot less frustrating if you have that. That being said, it's not as important as the other stuff. It's not as important as leverage. It's not as important as hacking, and it's definitely not as important as morph. So save it for the end of the game. All right. So that's all the stuff for access. Well, now, how to stay alive. All right. So number one, you're going to look right at the physician. No, it wasn't physician. It was in security. It was your toughness. To go, oh, I need more hit points. Before you do that, all right, because these are kind of expensive. Number one, on a normal setting for the game, 200 hit points is plenty, right? So you can actually put this off a little bit. There are other things that I would actually recommend that you get first, because the issue with this game is there's a finite number of resources, right? Every time you go through an area and you pick up little coils of wire and pieces of paper and you stick them in the recycler, there's only so much matter that exists in this universe. And you can supplement it a little bit with recycler charges, which are grenades that turn things into little bits of matter that you can use to make things. But you don't get a lot from those. So you really want to kind of play conservatively. So right in the beginning, I believe it's under engineer, you get materials expert, right? And it's a very cheap one to get, right? Increase recycling yield by 20%. If you get this very early on in the game, everything you stick in the recycler is going to give you 20% more than it would have before you got it. So prioritize that over maybe getting some extra hit points or health. All right. You're going to need repair. That's another one that will actually get you access, but it's very limited. To get suit modification, again, suit modification is going to expand your inventory until your inventory is maximum. At the very beginning, it only goes up to about here. So you expand another row every time you get a row of inventory, and the more stuff you carry, the less you're going to have to go back to the recycler and dump it to get more stuff. Okay? And then, under Scientist, another one that's really good, but not as essential, and I did pick this one before I picked the recycler, and I was actually, it was probably the wrong order, is Necropsy. So, Necropsy allows you to recover Typhon organs that can be recycled to exotic material, which is used in the fabrication of neuromods. Well, that's great, because you want to make neuromods, because you want to stick that needle into your brain to alter your brain to make yourself more powerful than you've ever been before. Once you get over the idea of sticking a needle into your eye, I still haven't. Gladly, you don't actually have to watch that ever in the game. But as I digress, The recycler is probably a little bit more valuable because by the end of the game, you're basically wading around in alien organs that you can chop up and make into things. Did I mention this channel is primarily for kids? All right, so moving on. Those are going to help you maximize the amount of material that you create, right? Now we're going to need to look at staying alive. This one is actually a little bit underrated. It's metabolic boost. Doubles the duration of well-fed bonus and health gained by consuming food. Now, I'm not actually hurt right now, so I can't really show you this. But what happens when you eat food, well, maybe I can show you this, is if I eat this, normally I'd get 5 hit points, and I would regenerate an extra 5 as I walked around on the map. Now I'll get 10 and regenerate 10 hit points, 9 or 10 hit points, as I walk around the map. So it looks like you're only going to get 10, but you're actually getting 20. And another great thing in the game is if you hit the triangle button and hold it down, if you hit R1, you're going to eat a piece of food. So you don't have to go into the menu. You have a quick menu that allows you to eat food, and then you see my status comes up. And had I been actually hurt, you could see me regenerate some hit points. Pretty much right at the end of the game. I just reloaded the save right before I finished it. Okay, so those are going to maximize the amount of stuff that you're going to get and keep you alive without maybe pumping too many points into using medkits. Later on in the game, you're going to want to get physician, but before you do, all right, I recommend you get gunsmith. All right, gunsmith allows you to use weapon upgrade kits to upgrade security weapons beyond modification level 1. Now I'm going to have to talk about weapons a little bit here because it is important, and this is one of those things, and I'm hopefully trying to avoid you having to go through this issue, where I got 2/3 the way through the game and said, wait a minute, why didn't I do that before? And I smacked myself in the head and said, that was really dumb. I should have taken these upgrades much sooner. Just like Deus Ex does not give you weapon upgrades all over the place, and it doesn't give you praxis points all over the place, this game gives you weapon upgrades all over the place, and neuromods all over the place. It wants you to spend those points, right? And if you actually look at some of the weapons, this is actually my silenced pistol, right? And every one of those dots is an upgrade that I put into it. The firepower is 15, all right? And I got that as a combination. It starts at 8, all right? Unmodified, it would be 8. You get an additional 2 points for every upgrade, so it goes to 10 and then 12. And in conjunction with getting the gunsmith one, you're also going to want to go to the security one. Oh, here it is, and get firearms. So then, on top of the bonus for getting your guns damage from 8 to 12, it's going to take it to another 3 points and give you critical hits by taking these two. All right. Also of note, with the pistol, magazine capacity, kind of nice, but range, right? What you're looking at on screen are actually all the weapons in the game. There is no assault rifle. There's no sniper rifle. If you're thinking about, getting a whole bunch of better weapons later in the game, I tell you right now, it's actually a very limited stock. All right. Your silenced pistol is the closest thing you're going to get to a sniper rifle. That being said, if you upgrade the range, it's going to give you an additional, I believe, 5 meters for every point. So it's going to take it from 15 meters to 35 meters. And if you're not familiar with metric, that's about 100 feet. So that's actually pretty good. And it's silenced. So that's great. So there's only 3 ballistic weapons in the game. So if you concentrate on gunsmith, you can concentrate on maxing these weapons out first. But don't go completely there yet, because I've got one more point to make. All right. So this can double as your sniper rifle. All right. Your shotgun is going to be for up-close damage. And again, the more points you put into gunsmith and the more points you put into firearms, you're going to take it from about 45 damage. I've got it all the way up to 98. And I did get the special shotgun with the pack. And then finally, you've got this disruptor stun gun, which is a special weapon that you use just for machines. You're going to use it just for robots because they can be harmed by electricity. And if you upgrade it all the way, you can take them out in about 1 hit, especially if you get a sneak attack. We'll get to that later, too. That being said, there's another type of weapon in the game, and they're the science weapons. I think that's also under engineer. Yes. All right, so after you take the recycler expert, the materials expert, you can open up lab tech. And this does the same thing for ballistic weapons that happens with your science-based weapons. There's only 2 science-based weapons in the game. There's the glue cannon, which you're going to get right away. And as you look the way I upgraded it, I don't need handling. I need range, and I need incapacitation rate. This was my smack in the head moment. I did not take any points in scientific upgrade. I only had the 1 point in incapacitation, which brought it to, I think, 125. 2/3 of the way through the game, I decided I was going to upgrade the glue cannon because the other 2 guns I had that I was using primarily were most of the way upgraded. And I put a couple of points into incapacitation, and the difference was palpable right away. It went from firing a whole bunch of glue at an enemy to get it to stop moving to a couple of shots and it was gone. They give you a lot of glue, especially early in the game, so you can kind of put that off for a little bit, but don't put it off for too long, because if you're spending money or you're spending resources making glue, those are resources that could be better spent making neuromods or making bullets. And then the other reason I wanted to point out for going for ballistics first is, all right, if the initial damage on your gun is 8 and you're now doing 15 per shot, it means you're going to kill enemies twice as fast and you're going to use half as many bullets. So you're conserving the amount of matter that you have to expend and keeping yourself alive at the same time. So my playstyle was kind of to do everything to stay alive. I was very sneaky. I attack enemies with sneak attacks. I used both weapons and I used the abilities for Typhon to like weaken enemies, which we'll go into in a little bit. Depending on your play style, you may want to go with just Typhon. You may want to go with just human, and there are achievements for sticking to one side or the other, not touching the other side of the neuromods. But if you really want to be like a completionist, or you're playing at a much harder difficulty level, then maximizing the amount of ammunition that you have, because it is really hard in the beginning of the game to kind of keep rolling with having enough materials to keep yourself well armed. Couple that with the damage bonus you're going to get from using the Typhon neuromods. So rolling into from the weapons and the weapon upgrades and being able to use your materials as effectively as possible, I'm going to come out and say it. If you're playing on the hard mode, guns are not enough. All right? Because playing on normal, there are some enemies that take a lot less damage if you don't stun them with something. I don't want to go into the different enemy types and ruin it, but you'll know them when you see them, when you start shooting them, and they just shrug off the damage. You may need a different type of weapon, or you may need to stun them first. So, for stunning enemies, all right, we have Psycho Shock. Okay, so Psycho Shock works against enemies that are weak to psychic attacks. Basically, it shuts down their ability to use any powers. So if they come at you with lightning or fire or an elemental attack, it'll stop them. If they come at you with any other type of attack that can be disabled, they'll also take additional damage. I only took 1 level of Psycho Shock because I basically used it to stun those types of enemies and then load on the damage. One thing I didn't try was Machine Mind. Forces robotic enemies to fight for you. I was thinking that maybe if you were going to go through a complete Typhon run, that you could kind of use that to hack. But looking at the description, it says that it's just for robot enemies. So I don't think you can use it as a substitute for hacking. So you're going to be shut out of the hacking if you decide to go Typhon only. Right? Let's see what we have. Oh, okay. So the rest of it's all going to be an energy. All right. So you also have Electrostatic Burst. There are mechanical enemies. They're going to be weak to electrical attacks. And there are a couple of enemies that are weak to fire. I never really used super thermal. I think the ones that were weak to fire, they were pretty much, you could take them down without weakening them. But the ones that were weak to lightning or electrical damage, you really need to hit them with something. So if you don't have the stun gun, or you don't have a lot of points in the stun gun, or you're just trying to conserve ammo, Electrostatic Burst is really good to maybe like keep some ammunition handy. The other one that's really fantastic is Kinetic Blast. You're going to eventually find enemies that if you hurt them, spawn tiny little grenades that run toward you and explode and hurt you with radioactive damage. If you use kinetic blast instead of trying to shoot them with a shotgun up close, or trying to pick them off with a pistol from far because they're really small, you could basically use, and I'll actually show it to you, this blast. And it's great because time will freeze as you target the blast. You let it go, and it blows up everything in the area. So you don't have to worry about when you're aiming it, maybe having enemies attack you. Another thing about the psychic powers, they give you... I've been using psychic powers most of the time through the game. I've been kind of conservative with them. I have 63 psi hypos by the end of the game. There's plenty of ways. There are other ways to regenerate your psi power too. I don't want to get into them too much. I may have actually accidentally revealed one early in this video. If you go back and look at it, I'm not going to say what I did. But I did something out of reflex. You'll catch it if you're really looking. But yeah, you can use your psychic powers all over the place. They're not as damaging as the guns, but they can set you up for a combo. Right? Oh, and if we're talking about weapons, the last one I wanted to mention was the Q-beam. You get this early in the game. It's a really cool, really powerful laser that I saved all my ammunition for and haven't used. I think I have like 3,000 rounds of ammunition for the Q-beam. Yeah. So you can use it, don't feel too bad. One other thing I am going to set out is I did find a special pistol. If you're interested in finding this pistol, because unmodified it does do more damage than my completely modified pistol, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want this, definitely look it up on an FAQ. I don't want to reveal it here for the people who don't want to do it and they want to play the game without getting too many hints. And go for it right away, because you're going to have to depart from the regular course of the story to get it early to make it worth putting all the points into. That's all I'm going to say about that one. All right, so wrapping it up, because we've gone through most of the essential ones, I'll go through some of the other ones that are actually really useful but aren't essential for survival. All right. Neurostimulant, this is going to increase the effectiveness of psi hypos. I had a lot of psi hypos. I put all the points into this, and the reason to put points into this is if you're using a lot of psychic powers, or even if you're not. I upgraded my psionic aptitude, so I had 200 hit points and 200 psi. If you're going to upgrade the psi aptitude, you should upgrade the neurostimulant, because they kind of work well together in that it's going to keep that bar full. Another thing is, because I'm not going to save this, I could just waste this. If you keep using psychic powers, gotta wait for the cooldown, and you run out and you're not able to use another one, just hitting the powers button will automatically use one of the psi hypos, so you don't have to go into the menu every time you want. I should use something that actually used a little bit more to make my demonstration. Alright, one more. And I just used a psi hypo, and I got 120 hit points, or psi points back. Okay. Alright, psychotronics. So there are two different things that you can equip chips to, and chips will allow you to modify your abilities. The more points you put into this, the more chips you can equip. I advise you to put points into it, but wait into the game. You're going to get a lot of chips, but some of them are not that useful. Alright, other things are more important. Leverage and hacking, as I said before, as you go through the game, power them up gradually. Wait until you hit an area where you're going to need these things in order to get through the game. Repair, if you really want to be very completionist, you're going to need Repair 3. A note about turrets. A lot of people say, oh, you should fix every turret that you find. Or hack every turret that you find, because after a certain time, if you install a certain number of Typhon Neuromods, the turrets start to think that you're an alien, right? And so you'll have to hack them to make them your friend again. I've had limited success with turrets. If you repair a turret and you spend the spare parts, which is something you could use to repair something else, like a control panel or an elevator or something to help you get access to something later on, what'll happen is you'll progress in the story and you'll come back and all those turrets will be thrashed and there will be whole new enemies in that area, and you'll have to spend more points to repair them, and even fortifying them is not that great. Turrets are very limited in when they're useful. You're going to notice a couple of areas of the game where you need them, and actually having repair 3, I would get it before halfway through the game. Because there is an instance where you're going to need a couple of terrorists to finish a story quest. And having them be fortified is good, but all in all, as you're going through the game, it's better not to use those spare parts, because then what you're going to have to do is take weapons or other equipment that you would normally break down and use for ammunition and use them and make spare parts to repair the turrets. They don't stay, and I think you're better off keeping the ammunition with you too, because it's also portable. Right? Dismantle. Break down equipment in your inventory into spare parts. Recover spare parts from destroyed operators. I forgot that one. You don't get to operators, I don't want to say too much, until later on in the game, but having extra spare parts come from them is great. So that one you should take later too. Notice I did not take anything for the wrench. The wrench becomes very, very obsolete early in the game. It's good to conserve ammo. If you glue something up, the only thing I would advise going after with a wrench is a glued up mimic. Hit it with a glue cannon, hit it with a wrench a couple of times, and then move on. Other than that, don't waste anything on the wrench. You're going to stop using the wrench very early on in the game. It's not a good weapon. It's there just to give you something to smack things with when you actually run out of ammo and are desperate, which you should never be. Okay? If you are going to play on the harder difficulties, you may actually have to go for toughness 3 and get 300 health just to keep you alive. Couple that with, in energy, you also have resistances. So you have electrostatic resistance, you have thermal resistance, and you can use these to access higher levels of different things. They're going to cut your damage by electrical and thermal by 50%. So 50% less damage is definitely good. If you take the next level up, you can absorb it as psi points, but again, you get psi points for so many things. Why waste the neuromods on absorbing energy as psi points while you're still taking damage from it? Another one is Phantom Shift, which unlocks Phantom Resistance. Phantom Shift is somewhat useful. I've never really used it on enemies because I tend to sneak up behind them and get them before they'll come for you. But it unlocks Phantom Genesis and Ether Resistance. So on top of both electrical and fire damage, there's also ether damage that you can take. I did not unlock Fear Resistance. I just did not scan enough targets to get it. But I was not in fear mode enough in order to make it worthwhile. Mind Jack, if you're trying to avoid killing human beings who are mind controlled, just take one level in Mind Jack, and it will actually enable you to just knock them unconscious. And a great thing, too, is when you knock them unconscious, you can also loot their stuff. You can go through their pockets and take their things. So you don't actually have to kill them to get their stuff. So keep that in mind. It's a nice little bonus for Mind Jack. Right, I didn't take regeneration either, because there's so many different ways to restore your health. There's not much left I actually wanted to talk about. There are some other things, and you're willing, if you want to, definitely try different combinations. If you wanted to do more powers, if you wanted to do a more psychic-based build, you could do that. Try different things. I basically went with I'm going to throw everything I can into staying alive as much as possible and giving myself as little trouble as getting through the game. And then finally, combat focus is really good if you're going for the human play, but as soon as you get access to the hyphen mods, combat focus is completely no longer useful. If you've got the ability to do damage to enemies while they're in a weakened state, you could take this, but you're still expending ammunition that you could otherwise have used at a better rate with just a stun. They're not going to be stunned if you're using combat focus, but you are going to be able to do extra damage, and you're going to be going to be able to shoot faster than they can. All right, the last note I want to make is for stealth. Now, I'm a very stealthy player. I only took one level of stealth, and the reason for that is stealth works best when you're crawling, or you're crouching, technically, because you're not really actually crawling, right? But when you're crouching, you can hide behind objects better. Why take stealth where you can walk and run if you're going to walk up behind something and hit it with melee weapons? It's just as easy to crouch and stay out of the line of sight. And with the mobility mod that we took earlier, in order to give us extra speed, not only while running, but while crouching, it kind of makes Stealth 2 and Stealth 3 a little bit silly to take. Sprint without making noise. there's almost never a point in the game where you're going to want to sprint to sneak up on an enemy, right? If you do take stealth, I advise you to take at least one level of sneak attack. Level 2 requires 6 neuromods, and you get an extra 50% damage. I don't think it's worth the 6 neuromods to just get an extra 50%. If you've already packed everything in your inventory, if your weapons are already really upgraded to the point where you're doing maximum damage, 200% is probably enough. Oh, there is one more skill because it saved my butt, and I'm going to give you one last piece of advice. If you're not sure what you're going to need, and you don't know what to spend your neuromods on, hang on to them. Keep a few in your pocket because you may come into a situation where you need something you didn't know you were going to need, and when you find it, it absolutely winds up saving the day. And the one I'm actually going to talk about is Backlash. Let's see if I can find where it is. Yeah, okay, so it's right here. The situation, I don't want to reveal too much. There is a giant enemy that will frequently appear that can kill you in one hit. You have two options. You can kill the enemy, which I have not tried because I've seen it take a whole bunch of endgame enemies that were not in its faction, kill all of them, and still have half health. So it's tough. Or you can hide for 3 minutes. But there was a problem. There was a glitch. I was at an area where the area behind me, I would warp to an area and there was no way to go anyplace else, right? I had just gotten onto the level and it was in a hallway. As a matter of fact, it's here. I'll show you where I had this problem, right? So we're in the lobby, so this is still a fairly early looking portion of the game. I may have just revealed another way you can get stuff back. I was actually here before you go, when you get out of the Neuromod division, right? So there's no place to go from the Neuromod division. And the creature was camped out right here. All right? So the timer, for whatever reason, did not go off. Either I wasn't close enough to the creature or whatever, and I was waiting here and waiting here and waiting here and hoping it would go away or the timer would start, and it noticed me and crawled in and killed me. So I'm like, how do I get through this? Because now I'm stuck at a point, if I go through here, it's not going to go away. It waits for you. What I did was I had enough points to buy Backlash, right? And Backlash, I keep losing the icon for it. Psycho Shock, Backlash. Okay. Create a shield for 20 seconds, which prevents the next enemy attack from damaging you. Enemies that attack the shield are repelled. It doesn't matter how strong the attack is, you get one free hit. And I really wish I had recorded this. I hadn't thought of it when I did it, but it was kind of like a Hail Mary. I hit Backlash, ran directly at it, slid beneath his legs. I didn't slide.
As a reminder, all personnel must complete monthly physicals during their stay aboard Talos 1. Dr. DeVries promises to make them as quick and painless as possible.
Jumped over the railing and went and found someplace to hide. As soon as I actually touched it, oh look, I can actually show you how the health regeneration works now because I've actually wound up hurting myself. There we go. But I did find someplace to hide and wait out the 3 minutes to get away from it. That's not good. Alright, so I've talked a lot about neuromods. I hope I've given you some helpful hints. You know, it hasn't been one of those fun videos, but this is one of those educational videos, which I hope is going to get people, you know, maybe a bit of a leg up if they're having problems with the game. Or at least be less afraid to spend neuromods and spend points. Because they give you a lot. And it's okay to experiment. And if you mess up a few points, it's not going to be the end of the world. So I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you guys next time.